Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good
Hello.
afternoon, Stacie.
Good
Very nice.
morning for me,
Uh,
but good
it's about
afternoon.
it's six p.m. here, so we're just going into dusk. It's the opposite
Yeah,
sides of the planet.
I just woke up. But happy evening to you. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah. No.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like I said to you before we started, it's you know we've been told here in South Africa that all atheists are old white men, and I said we've got to break that stereotype. So we've been
Mhm.
scrounging the corners of the internet looking for all the women and atheists that are not Caucasian. And it's impossible to go to any specific country and not find them. We are legion, and
Mhm.
I think it's very important that we get our voices out there and just be heard in an effort to normalize disbelief,
Mhm.
because as I said here in Africa, you mentioned the word atheist, and people immediately visualize, that you probably like is stealing babies at night and flying on
Exactly.
broomsticks.
Yeah, I think that is a very common misconception.
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
when we put faces to people,
Mhm.
it's more difficult to actually people are very quick to have a big beef with an ideology, but when you put a
Mhm.
face to it, and there's a human interest to it, people start to get an idea like, wait a minute, there's actually, let's investigate. There's people behind this. It's not this big monolith, scary concept that we need to approach.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good idea for a show. So thank you for
Yeah,
having me here and for this discussion.
yeah, you're very welcome. So let's jump right into it. If you don't
Sure.
mind telling us a little bit about your religious background, did you grow up in a religious environment? And if you didn't grow up in a religious environment, did it influence your formative years, or your time growing up at all?
Yeah, so no, I did grow up in a religious environment. Um, I don't
Me too.
remember. Yeah. Well, there we go. We have some camaraderie right there. I grew up in a Christian home, so I know there's so many different flavors of Christianity. So to kind of narrow it down, it was more of the Pentecostal charismatic. That's my mom. So she's watching right now. Um, so we grew up kind of the holy rollers, the being slain in the spirit, speaking in tongues. Saying that kind of gives you a very good idea of the type
I'm
of
I'm totally there.
yeah. um, yeah, so church services were not only entertaining, they were very emotionally driven, and
Mhm.
you would kind of go there to sort of get your fill of whatever you needed. And yeah, so that was very much my my younger years. And another part of that was also a lot of spiritual warfare, um, being told that, there were demons kind of attached to different
Mhm.
articles that you could bring into your home, or if you were watching TV shows or movies or different types of music, you could open a door to Satan and let him come in. So there was a lot of fear involved in that as well. So it wasn't fun growing up, but I mean, when I say it wasn't fun, it was just a lot of, just like I said, fear based. And that was very normal to me. Now I know
Yeah,
that's not normal.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how I think it's called Stockholm syndrome, where
Hmm.
the people who are being held hostage actually start feeling empathy for the
Oh,
hostage takers after a while. And
definitely.
my experience with religion was exactly like that. And
Hmm.
it's like this weird masochistic thing within us, where we just
Yeah.
we go back for the punishment, and we enjoy taking the punishment.
Yeah. I when I think back to it, which I feel like I look back almost every day and I'm like, why didn't I question this more? Why didn't I pull at this more at this time? But it really didn't seem like there was any other way to live. There wasn't,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
think that being a Christian was like, I thought that that was the only option. I didn't think that being a
right.
non-Christian was an option because the alternative of being a non-Christian was, well, then I'm just going to go to hell. So
Yeah, mm,
I don't want to choose that. So
exactly.
it's easier to
And
just stay in.
the thing is also, religion has such a big monopoly on people's psyche. Like everybody around you's doing it. You feel like you feel completely left out and like the finger sticking out when
Right.
not involved in it. And even if to yourself you're thinking this is crazy. I mean, like what are these people doing?
It's true.
Everybody around you's doing it, so you just buy into the crazy, and
Yeah. No,
while it doesn't
absolutely.
feel so crazy anymore. Yeah, yeah,
No, I would sometimes, as I got older, especially, I'd look around in a church service and the churches we would attend kind of in my later like adulthood, they weren't as ridiculous as the ones that I went to as a teenager, where, people would be slain in the spirit or the Holy Spirit would be taking over and they'd be barking like dogs and acting a fool. But they were still like, there were still some things where, the raising of the hands and like the long praise and worship and just I'd kind of look around and I'd think, oh, if I brought someone here, what would they be thinking? I would be like, they'd probably think this is very strange. But to me, it was, I guess, normal. But
yeah.
there were times where I would sort of have this clarity where I'm like, if I didn't grow up in this, I would think this is bizarre. But oh well, I guess this is normal. So I'm glad that I grew up in it because otherwise I probably wouldn't have become a Christian. So that right there tells you those are those
Yeah,
kind of pieces of critical thinking that you
yeah,
should listen to.
exactly. This is funny thing is, regardless of who you ask, there's always that little voice in the background that said to you,
Yes.
like, wait a minute, like something's not right here, but we're very quick to, because like I said, it's either a societal thing or a community or a familial
Hmm.
thing where everybody is perpetuating this, so you suppress that and you think like, no man, this,
Definitely.
everybody's on this boat. If I don't get on, I'm going to miss out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, how many times did you hear, or at least I did, if you hear that, that's doubt, that's
Yeah,
Satan kind of, tempting you or trying to pull you away. So you need to start filling your faith and or building your faith. Faith is like a muscle. So
yeah,
you have to read your Bible more, you have to spend more time in devotion. But really that's just indoctrinating yourself more or continually brainwashing yourself more. You're just they're standing up at the pulpit giving you the directions in order for you to continue the brainwashing at home. So they're
um,
just doing a really good job at training you to continue their job.
it's true.
Mhm.
So, well, what was the linchpin that finally collapsed the whole Tower of Jenga?
Oh, you know what? I feel like the linchpin was so I had done a really good job of kind of surrounding myself in this like world of Christian. I bubble wrapped my
Yeah,
whole self. I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm a mom of three boys, and what I didn't say yet is I had left that charismatic Pentecostal um, sort of churches, and in 2019 I found a Reformed church. Um, I thought that the charismatic Pentecostal Christianity was absolutely crazy. I didn't think that it was biblical anymore. And I was really searching for that biblical
mm,
true theology. I wanted to be uh, just following God's word as best as I could because I wanted to be a really good Christian and I didn't want to believe something that wasn't true. So we joined a Reformed church. So I had really done a good job of just sort of like getting into a good church. My kids were in a Christian school. All my friends were Christian. Everyone that I surrounded myself with were just Christian. And then we moved away. We moved 4 hours away, and I wasn't surrounded by that bubble anymore. And it's like my mind was starting to kind of clear. And I started kind of, instead of listening to sermons every day that like I used to, I would be on YouTube listening to like R.C. Sproul and John MacArthur sermons and all these Reformed preachers. I stopped doing that, and I started listening to more podcasts that were, I guess, more liberal, or just things that I wouldn't have listened to before. And by doing that, I was like, wow, these are kind of interesting. It wasn't because I was questioning my faith in any way, but the things that they just different topics that they were pointing out made me reevaluate what I was believing. And it was in the fall of 2021 when there was a lot of craziness surrounding COVID and the vaccine. And I was starting to see how Christians were really responding to that. And I would say that was sort of my linchpin, was how can they not believe something with black and white evidence right there in front of you that it's backed by scientific proof. It has studies and evidence, and it's been tested, and it's proving that it works, or also COVID is serious. Look, we have all these things pointing to the fact that it's a very serious problem. And Christians especially were just choosing to ignore the evidence right in front of them. And I was like, okay, so they're ignoring something that's right in their face. You can see it. But what about the Bible? Are they believing something that maybe is not true about, could the Bible maybe be something that they're just believing without actually testing it? And so that was sort of my moment where I was like, I'm going to look into this a bit more, because so that was sort of the moment where I was like, I need to figure this out. And I wasn't surrounded by the church and the Christian school and all my Christian friends. And I kind of felt like I was free to do that. And my husband is someone who is a very supportive husband who went to church with us and joined the church because he really just was a supportive husband. But when I came to him with these questions, because he's a very fact-based person, he agreed with me, and he was very sincere and kind when I came to him with questions, and he didn't want to lead me down that hole down that path if I wasn't ready with exploring, but he just very gently guided me at an appropriate time that I would be ready for. And it gave me kind of the courage and the okay to explore these things. And when I came to the conclusions on my own, he was like, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. Good job. So hope that makes sense.
No, it does completely.
Yeah.
It's there are two types of experience with this. Some people describe it more as a gradual process of unpacking things from the wagon. It's like this, then this goes, and then that goes, and then finally they realize that they've unpacked God out of the wagon as well.
There were little things.
It's like little things that keep on chipping away at the block. And other people describe it as a come to Jesus moment. It's just like the clouds part, and you realize, fuck, that's it. It's like in a heartbeat. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like mine was more kind of like there was a couple little things for a few weeks, and then literally the clouds parted, and I felt like I would say this is my born again experience. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's
It's
how I felt.
extremely liberating. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's very scary at first. And
It was.
it's literally like jumping off a mountain or something. With
Absolutely.
you standing on the precipice and it's scary. But as soon
Yeah.
as you take that step off, it's like you just set free to fly. And
Yes. Well, there
yeah.
were a few times where I went to certain like different websites to kind of explore questions I had. And I remember my heart was pounding. Like, I was so scared. I thought, am I doing something wrong? And then I'm like, why am I having such a physical response to just finding
Yeah.
out an answer to something? And
Yeah.
then I would go on it, and then I was like, no, I shouldn't be here. And I'd close it. And then I'd wait, and then I waited a couple of days, and I thought about it, and I was like, no, like, if I want to find out an answer, I can go look at the website. But it took me a couple of days to think about it. And then I went, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense than what I have been told.
I think
Why
it's
is this
because
making so much sense?
exactly, but I think it's because we are conditioned not to question. We
Yeah,
conditioned not to challenge authority, and it starts. I don't know. We in the culture where I grew up, we we conditioned you don't question authority, you don't question your parents, you don't question your elders. Everybody's got
right,
your best intentions at heart by default,
right.
so
Hmm.
it's assumed. And then when you add the authority figure of a church person or somebody
Yeah,
that's, you add that on top of that, it's a double-edged sword, because you want to believe that they've got your best interest at heart, but they don't
exactly.
necessarily do at the end of the day.
No, or they're believing the same thing, and so
Yeah.
they don't know any better. But I always found, like, I found that they'd say, oh yeah, we welcome questions, come with your questions. But those questions always had, I would find that their answers wouldn't always make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd leave with like more questions, like, what?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that just doesn't make sense to me. Or you'd go with questions about the Bible, and depending on who you asked, each person could give you a different answer. And it's like, shouldn't it just be like one answer? And how
Yeah.
can you look at the same book and get like 15 different answers for one topic? So that was another thing that I was really
Yeah.
starting to come to terms with on my own. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's there's so many similarities in our experiences. It's your story really resonates.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, any specific organization or person or something that helped you with this journey, that actually sparked this process of questioning, and or was it like inside job 100%?
It was definitely an inside, I feel like it was an inside job, because when I started, um, like, when I came to the realization, I don't believe in God, and this is how I got there. I remember my husband saying, it's really cool that this was all you. Like, there wasn't, like, it's not like you were following someone
Yeah.
online that, you kind of were just walking in their footsteps. It was just like, this was all you, and you found the answers.
Mm.
And I kind of liked that. I mean, once I started having these questions, I was going to different resources, but it wasn't like there was someone that I was like, "Ooh, what they're doing, I want to do too."
Mm.
It was just myself, and I kind of like that as well. I
Yeah.
wasn't influenced by like a friend or anyone. This was all me. So nobody can say that, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. you know?
Exactly. The funny thing is, we're always told that who was it that led you down this path, and it's
Exactly.
you cannot choose to you cannot make somebody believe something. You either
No.
are convinced or you are not. It's a very black and white binary thing. Now you can have people give you more information on a specific fact, but ultimately you are the person that chooses to believe it or not. So somebody cannot, I cannot make you believe now that cats are the best pets and that you should you get rid of all your dogs and and birds. It's I can maybe tell you how much fun I'm having with my cat, and maybe tell you about the disadvantages of having a dog, but it's an inside job, really. But what I find is that there are certain markers, if I reflect on my journey, there's certain people that have really solidified and emboldened me in certain aspects, because we always find role models and people that maybe articulate something that we've always been thinking about but never had the ability or the courage to express freely, and somebody can just actually put those words into a certain order and it resonates very deeply with you. And it's always good for us to follow the example of people who've had experiences similar to ours. We can always learn from that. So it's very, very interesting. I'm always influenced by the great authors. First of all, it's the Dawkins, the Harris, the Hitchens. They just they have a way with words and just very succinctly putting a lot of information into context. And there's a couple of there's this one American lady that I loved listening to. Her name was Madeleine Murray O'Hair. She was she was one, if I remember correctly, one of the very first people who started the American Atheists organization. I'm not exactly sure about the details, but just the brashness and the unashamed way that she tackled especially some of the Christian preachers.
I'll have to look her up.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you a link after.
Okay.
Very, very interesting.
I was going to say, I remember when I started doing more research or just starting reading books, that I was like, ooh, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to read a Richard Dawkins book. And it felt so risque, but it felt so liberating at the same time. And I read his book, Outgrowing God. And that one, I read a review of it, and it said everyone, even just in high school, should read this book to kind of just prepare you. And I was like, okay, I have to read this. So I did. And that was such a great book. And it was perfect for where I was at. But I also did agree with that review that everyone in at least high school should read it, just to kind of set them up for life and not to get sucked into any kind of religion. But it felt very exciting to read these authors that felt so off limits, like Christopher Hitchens and Oh, hi, John.
What was I going to say? I completely lost my train.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
No. It's not you. It's like, I'm telling you, I'm running down so many different rabbit trails. It's it was about. It'll come to me.
Okay.
Yeah. It's strange. Like the people always say to us, the most vocal and ardent atheists were generally like they were those pesky Christians, the ones that always used to nag you. And that's very true. Like ever since I cast my religion aside, and I'm such a humanist at heart. I think that I want to. It's not like I want to preach about like leaving your religion behind, but it's like I want to also be that catalyst to get people thinking about and just it's not necessarily like shaking people by the shoulders. Hey, there's no God, you stupid, you're wasting you're dedicating your life to a delusion, wake up, it's more a matter of just asking questions and planting seeds for people to germinate and ponder about in their own way. I don't know if because the one thing about me is that I hated that whole, let's go out and preach, let's go and spread the good word.
I was the same way. I actually had a hard time, I guess, preaching the gospel in person or sharing the gospel one-on-one. I couldn't do that. I had no problem sharing things on social media. I was very bold about that, but like talking to someone about the gospel and telling them what exactly it was, I couldn't do that because it sounded very weird to me when I would say it out loud.
Yeah.
So even though I believed it, but yeah. But I do find that people who were very devoted to their faith or their religion, they're the ones who do things like what we're doing right now, because they were very serious about it. It meant for me, it meant everything to me. So now I'm just like, no, I have to just talk about it because there's other people who are obviously going through the same questions at times, and they want to know that they're not alone in what they're feeling. And that's what I was looking for when I was coming out of it is, did anybody else go through this?
Right. And that's the thing that keeps people in religion as well. Is
Exactly.
you feel like such an outcast and so alone, and there's a big control structure within religion and society that keeps people within the fold. People who are and it's also, I think, part of our evolution as a species is we've got definite in and out groups within our society, and if you're part of the out group, you don't want to go there. It feels like you're an outcast, and you're not going to survive at the end of the day, because it's built into your DNA. As a group, we survive, so you don't want to go against the flow.
Well, it definitely makes me think of that scripture in the Bible where it says that we're to be in the world and not of the world. And that right there is that in and out group thinking, right? So I always thought, okay, well, I'm living in the world, but I am not a part of any of these people. I am in my own group, and I have to be careful that I don't become a part of the world because they have it all wrong and they're all going to hell. And I don't want to become like any of them. So
it's you either with us or you're either with me or you're against me. I remember that.
Oh yeah, and that's where they get that like ridiculous persecution complex, and you're always thinking that you're being persecuted in every which way, and I was guilty of that. So
exactly, without fail, every year this war on Christmas, like I want to say to people, bitch, please sit down.
There is no war. There is no war. You can put a tree up in your house. You can decorate your front lawn. You're fine.
That's great.
You're fine. Yeah.
Any are you involved in any activism per se?
Oh yes. I would say I am. It kind of just happened. I was not even aware that there was a whole activist community. And I just started doing, I started making TikToks, which I don't make a lot of because I just, if an idea comes to me, I'll just make a video. But I started doing that. I'm a very open person. Obviously, I'm doing an interview right now. I started doing interviews and because I wanted to help someone who was going through this. And if I'm going through something, I'll share it. I've always been like that, no matter what I've been going through, because I always think I want to be able to relate to someone or have someone relate to me. And that sort of is what happened with this whole activism. And just with different interviews. And then I got contacted by a Skeptic Haven on YouTube, and they're a channel that has 5 different shows that cover a wide variety of topics. And so they asked me to be a co-host on one of their weekly shows. So I co-host Secular Soapbox, and that just randomly happened. I thought they wanted me to just be kind of like a rotating host, but I became a weekly host, and it's been an amazing experience. And actually, just this past week, I got to interview Seth Andrews, which was an absolute dream come true. So we've had some pretty amazing people on our show, that Dave Warnock and just, Myth Vision, Derek Lambert, and lots of great people who are also activists in the community and just want to make a difference and educate people. So, and then I did another show or a Zoom with Recovering from Religion. And
they do.
another great. Yeah. So basically, if people invite me to be on their platform, then I'm absolutely honored, and I will gladly say yes. And so I just kind of do a little bit here and there, and just, let people know it's fine to question your religion, and it's okay to leave. So,
exactly. Yeah. The religion ain't going anywhere, so.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's cool to take a break for a while, even if you.
Yeah. No, for sure.
What fuels you at the end of the day? What are you passionate about? What is a lot of people, when they leave religion, they get very passionate about promoting things like critical thinking, skepticism, that kind of thing. Have your passions or anything like that changed since you left religion?
Yeah, I think what you just said, like skepticism, critical thinking, I still I want to know everything that I believed, and I want to know kind of the history of the Bible. I listen to a lot of podcasts that kind of dive into how the Bible was kind of formed, and the different mythologies that it borrowed from. And so I find that really fascinating. I listen to different debates between theists and non-theists, because I just want to know how to have a really good conversation with people. I listen to street epistemology because I want to know how to just be a good communicator. Yeah.
So Musa and the guy Anthony Maglubosco, he does fucking amazing interviews. But there are a couple of them, and it's incredible how effective that Socratic method of questioning is to get down to why people believe what they believe.
Exactly, and doing it in a non. He's not he's not confrontational. He asks the questions in such a calm way, and it really makes you stop and think. So that's I want to learn from other people who succeed. What I think they're succeeding, but who do really well in this space. And
I don't know if street epistemology is for me. Whenever people, I just don't have the patience. I really don't have the patience.
I think you'd have to have a certain personality to do really well at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, he has a perfect personality.
Somebody comes to me with 6,000 years ago, God said poof, and then mudman, rib woman, and the snake in the garden. I can't.
No.
I just don't have the patience. It's very strange.
Yeah. No, he's great.
We always talk. We want to touch a little bit on religious trauma, because it's a thing. It really is a thing. People. It's almost like that idea that you get usually in male circles that say, just tough it up, just be tough about it. But religious trauma is a real thing, and it affects people in very subtle, subconscious ways, especially. People think that they are never worthy of anything. They don't deserve to achieve anything by themselves, and but we're very fortunate in Western circles when it comes to religious trauma. You should see some of the Middle Eastern and the way that women are treated in those religions. It's I shudder to think.
Yeah.
But if you can maybe reflect on, personally, if I talk about me, it was just, for me, it was just, I constantly lived in fear. I was just so scared of always fucking angering God, and it was the strangest thing. Like when I finally let go of it, I was like, why did I live in such anguish and fear for such a long period of my life? It was such an unnecessary burden to carry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any similar reflections on your experience.
Yeah, no, I think going through religious trauma was going through it while I was in religion and not realizing that I was having trauma. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was happening, and I thought this was just normal to deal with, and it was just more spiritual warfare that I was battling, not the trauma that religion was causing. And when I realized that religious trauma was an actual thing after I kind of denounced Christianity and was like, I am done. I don't believe anymore. I came across an article, a very long article by Marlene Winell, who she wrote the book Leaving the Fold. And I didn't know who she was, but I found this article and it was like ridiculously long. And I just read the first, 8 paragraphs. And I'm like, this woman is writing about me. And everything I have experienced my entire life. And I'm like, I just thought this was just the way I was. And I thought that I always thought there was something wrong with me, or I wasn't going to be able to shake it. But it was just by being in this environment week after week and day after day of just being told, like, you're not worthy and you're wretched and all of this. And I
like
really
filthy
dealt
rags.
Exactly. Yes. And I dealt with anxiety my entire life, and I really blame it or attribute it to being in a religious environment, because leaving, it felt like a weight had been lifted. I still I think I still have anxiety just as part of just a natural anxiety, because I still take anxiety medication, but not I don't deal with it to the extent that I did when I was fully immersed in religion. It was debilitating at times. When I think back, I'm like, oh, I think those were actually panic attacks. And I didn't realize that was a panic attack. And I would pray and pray and pray and start speaking in tongues, trying to combat it. But I was having a panic attack. So, yeah. And so this article by Marlene Winell, and then reading her book, Leaving the Fold, it just exposed so much of what I had experienced my whole life. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. And so that is another thing that just really fuels my fire and drives why I speak out against it, because I don't think any child should have to live in a home that promotes this. And I was kind of I was doing that with my own kids, but I never brought up certain things like hell or Satan, because those things scared me, and I wasn't going to scare my kids, but I was teaching them about God and reading Bible stories and stuff, but I didn't want to put any of the fear stuff on them at such a young age. So I'm just really glad. My kids are 10, 8, and 3 right now, and I think I left religion at a really good time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, when it comes to children are like little sponges. They just absorb every single thing around them, and I'm convinced, if you give children the appropriate tools to discover the world for themselves, they will eventually come to the right conclusions.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I thought I was doing the right thing biblically, like train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they won't depart from it. I wanted to, be that good Christian mom and instill all these things, but I'm really glad that I, in the long run, didn't, because I see how damaging it was. And also with my oldest son, I was starting to see signs of anxiety in him. And I was seeing things that I was like as a child starting to creep up with him. And I was like, oh, I don't want to have to go through this, because I knew how he was feeling inside. And I could see at times he was feeling this like anxiety and guilt over the littlest thing. And I was like, oh, I don't want him to have to go through this, because he doesn't need to. So, and since we've left the church and everything, he actually hasn't had, it's my mom. He hasn't dealt with any of this. So I'm glad. Yeah. Do you think your church leaders were true believers or in it as a job? No, I think the church we left, the Reformed church, I think they're true believers, because when we did leave, which was only like in the last year and a bit. So I'm a new unbeliever, but when they did find out, even though we didn't live in the city that the church was in, we were still technically under their membership at the church. They called us out like under their disciplinary actions. What? And so from April of last year until November, so 7 months, they disciplined us every couple weeks from the pulpit, and it was live streamed, because all churches are live streamed now. But they, did their protocols of calling us out, excommunicating us, bringing us up. And so I think they believe what they're doing is biblical and they're doing the right thing. But I also make this known.
It's a shitty thing to do.
It's absolutely a shitty thing to do. But I also make this well known, because if anyone from the church follows along to try to like see what I'm talking about, which I think some of them do, I make it known every time they were not doing it for our benefit to bring us back like they say they were. They were doing it for the benefit of everyone sitting in those pews, to scare them into submission. And because they are sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want to do anything where they're going to, discipline me and have my name publicly.
Stacie, look at what they did to Stacie. No way I'm going through that.
No, it was many times where they said my name, my husband's name, and our 3 children's names. And not that they called out our 3 kids in like a shame on the kids. It was more like, oh, the poor kids, because of what their parents are doing. Yeah. So I make it very clear that they were doing it for the people sitting there so that they don't leave.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I always like to, when we start wrapping these up, try to do a little bit of introspection, and your mind and yourself very well. If you could reach out to young Stacie, like many years ago. Like what is there like one thing that you would say to her to to jumpstart this journey? Is there
You know
any
what?
specific? Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly feel like I think about this every single day. I think about, why didn't I do this? Like, why
Smell
didn't
the
I?
coffee sooner.
Yeah. Or when I thought this, why didn't I pursue this more? Why didn't I tug at that thread more? Or when someone said this to me and it got me thinking, why did I shove it away? Why did I just, ignore that, even though what they were saying was so in your face true? So what I would say to myself is, or to anyone else who's kind of had those moments, is don't be afraid to pull at that thread, or don't be afraid if someone asks you a question and you're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, and it completely contradicts everything that I've been told. Explore that more, find out why it contradicts it. And the truth is, like, the truth, it's not going to have 15 different answers, so like the Bible does. And I just find that there's a whole, like, for me, there was a whole world to discover once leaving. And I was just so excited about everything that I could now learn about, because I kept myself sort of like, oh, I can't really learn about that because it doesn't line up with scripture. So how would that fit in? So I'm not really going to learn about that. Yeah, I just look back and I wish that I had just not kept myself so tightly cocooned at times. And even if I kept myself cocooned inside, I had questions and doubts, but I never vocalized them and I didn't pursue them. And one of the reasons is because I was afraid of hell. I really thought that there was a hell, and if I did, and what if I was wrong? I didn't want to go there. But the first thing that I had to do in order to pursue finding out these answers was to realize, or to discover that hell wasn't real. A lot of people, when they deconstruct, that's kind of the first thing or the last thing that they'll deconstruct is hell. For me, it had to be the first thing. So I couldn't go further without realizing this was not real. So whatever that step needs to be is for you to take, just take it.
Yeah.
And don't live in fear.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because the truth is not scared of any spotlight.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's when people start hiding things and embellishing things and giving you different versions, that's when you should question even more.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I was saying, how when I went on like a couple of different sources online, and my heart started to get really, I actually thought, why am I having such a physical response to just like finding something out? Like, I should be able to find something out and not be petrified of that answer. Because if that's what the answer is, that's what the answer is. I want to know. So just do it. And I am not regretful for it for 1 second. So it is so much better. Life is so much better. There's so much, like, I said to my husband at the beginning of all of this, for like a couple of weeks, I was like, they always talked about the freedom you have in Christ. And I never understood what that meant. But now I understand just the freedom I have in just like life and being me and allowing myself to just be who I am and explore these things. And there's so much more freedom. There's no freedom in religion. There's no freedom in Christ like they want you to think. So yeah, I would never ever want to go back to living that
Yeah.
way. So
I don't remember who said it, but I remember somebody called it mind-forged manacles. So
oh
it's like, yeah, it's I'll look up the quote
yeah,
later on.
yeah,
It's such a striking way of putting it. It really is. It's stifling and imprisoning.
definitely.
A lot of the natural things that we express. We naturally curious. Religion doesn't like that. We naturally expressive. Religion doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So many things that we naturally are that goes against the ideas of religion.
Yeah. Definitely.
We can go on about this.
Yeah, no. Oh, definitely. There's always new things to talk about or new things to say, I find. But yeah, the conversations are never the same, which I like. But yeah.
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 So, in conclusion, Stacie, don't you want to tell us where people can find you on social media if you have anything to promote?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Right.
If people want to connect with me, the most Instagram would be the easiest way. You can just find me under my handle here, Apostacie.
That was very, very clever. Very clever.
Thank you. I get a lot of compliments on that. So yeah, you can add me or follow me or chat with me. And then, like I said, I co-host Secular Soapbox. You can subscribe to Skeptic Haven on YouTube and ring the bell, and you'll be notified when our shows are on. And yeah, that's basically, I think that's it. That's where.
Amazing. Yeah. If you can message me, just the links to those, I'll post them in the description later on.
Yeah, definitely.
Anybody who wants to get in touch with you that way can do that.
Yeah.
But Stacie, I really want to thank you for being so generous with your time. It's really been an absolute pleasure and a delight speaking to you. And more power to you.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sure we haven't heard the last of Apostacie.
I hope not. I feel like I'm just getting started. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Amazing. Take care.
Okay. Bye.